being able to head home to their district. So we don't want to drag it out longer than necessary, but we do want to be sure we take care of the people's business thoroughly. I'd like to call on Senator Hatchett, if he doesn't mind, to open us with a word of prayer, please. What number are you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather here today. Please be with us as we make decisions for all the people of the state of Georgia. And please watch over our families and watch over all the members and people here on their way home this afternoon. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you. All right, we have 3 bills on the agenda. Chairman Harper had another engagement today, and he asked that we hold Senate Bill 486 until our next meeting, so we will give him that courtesy. Senate Bill 481 by Senator Jackson is next on the agenda, so we will hear from her. And I kind of like that, just so I can look at you better. But and then there should be a sign-up sheet for anybody that wants to speak for or against Senator Jackson's bill, and we'll take that up after she explains the bill and we have questions. All right, the floor is yours, Senator Jackson.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first I want to begin, even in his absence, to acknowledge Senator Harper for the work that he did with me on this bill. This came to my attention last year, and he told me in committee that he would be willing to work with me offline to offer something like this, and so I'm grateful to him for this work. What this bill does, very simply, is it brings us into the same line with the federal guidelines as it relates to who can get a license to grow hemp. Currently, our law says that if you have a misdemeanor for the possession, or if you have a misdemeanor involving the sale or distribution of a controlled substance, then you can't get a license. And if you have a felony of any kind, you cannot get a license to grow hemp. That's our current law. So what this would do, if you all would see so fit to pass this would strike any mention of misdemeanor, which brings us in compliance with the federal laws. And it would say, if you have a felony that has something to do with controlled substances, right? So if you have a drug-related felony, we're gonna make you wait 10 years post-conviction before you are eligible to then apply to get a hemp license to grow hemp. So that's all it does. In your folders, you'll see where Catherine has so graciously, from Senate Research, has pulled together and given us a copy of what the federal statutes are. I'll note that these statutes were created during the Trump administration and during Sonny Perdue's administration, and so ostensibly your friends helped to create these laws that simply say, listen, if you've had a drug conviction, then we're going to give you a 10-year waiting period and make sure you don't get in trouble again. You know, if you get arrested again, then you have to wait 10 more years, right? And so this really, I think, helps make it so that we can open up the hemp industry, make sure that, you know, if it's a college kid who got caught with a misdemeanor a long time ago, that they're not banned forever from being able to farm hemp here in Georgia. I'll yield for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? All right.
I like this. I'm just curious. Is this been a problem? I mean, with felonies and misdemeanors? Just curious about applying for the license.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We don't have really good records necessarily of people who just looked at the law and said, I'm not going to apply, right? I mean, so we don't really necessarily know. But we do have some really good statistics around how many people in Georgia have misdemeanor convictions for drugs, and those numbers are actually quite high. So it could certainly be a problem in the future if it hasn't already been a problem if we don't get rid of this prohibition for drug misdemeanors.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Senator, is there a misdemeanor? Is it a misdemeanor charge for distribution and sale, or is that a felony?
That's already a felony.
Exactly.
So the
That
bill was
my-
already written
I
kind of
think
poorly.
my understanding is that distribution or sale of a controlled substance is a felony. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, your bill then, if I have a felony conviction, can I receive a hemp growing license
What's the conviction for, sir?
for the sale and distribution of a controlled substance?
After 10 years post-conviction,
Post conviction,
10 years
10
later.
years, okay?
You could apply.
You could apply.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to misdemeanor. Misdemeanor would be less than a certain
Mm-hmm.
quantity, and it would not involve distribution or sale. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if I have a misdemeanor under current law, what would be my restriction for growing hemp?
You would have no restriction for growing hemp.
Under current law.
Well, so because under current law, it says a misdemeanor for the distribution and sale, that's not a misdemeanor.
That's right. But and that was my
So you
point.
can't get convicted of a misdemeanor that doesn't exist. So
My concern is that you would get a misdemeanor potentially for having possession or use. Is that correct?
that's right.
Okay, so if I, again, I recognize the challenge, but my point is, if I have been adjudicated on a misdemeanor charge of possession and personal use, can I receive a hemp growing license
Yes, you can.
without a wait?
That's correct. You
Is
can do.
that's what you're proposing.
No, you can do that
You
today.
can do that today. That's
Yes,
what I
sir.
needed to know. You can do that today.
That's
And
correct.
then does your legislation change that in any way?
It really, what it changes is if you had a misdemeanor for selling or trafficking,
I thought we agreed that that's not a misdemeanor.
I'm telling you what the current law says.
Okay.
The law as we have it today says that if you have a misdemeanor involving the sale or trafficking in a controlled substance, you would not be able to get a license. And we both agree, sir, that there is no such misdemeanor that exists.
We agree on that.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. And so then let's assume that it's a felony conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And then your proposal is that that individual could then grow hemp after a 10-year wait post felony.
That's correct.
Does that also suggest that that would mean a clean record, no further involvement in felony substance abuse
Well,
issues?
So they would be able to apply, and I think that the Department of Ag would certainly want to consider that, no doubt. So again, this is no guarantee that you're going to get the license. This simply opens the pathway for you to be able to apply.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. Yes. How have other states addressed this issue?
Well, other states often turn to the federal guidelines, and the federal guidelines are what I'm trying to have us introduce. So there are states that are silent on it, and therefore the federal guidelines are what stand.
I'm not sure you answered the question.
So-
What other states have done what you have recommended?
So the majority of states are silent on the issue,
Okay, so they're silent on the issue, and those
And
that
they
have
do-
acted on the issue are
and they
are-
defer to the Federal Hemp Act, which says that you have to wait 10 years post felony conviction. So that would be
So
their.
no other state has taken independent action?
I don't know the answer to that. I can't. I do not know that
So,
part.
excuse me, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions?
Senator, just for maybe a little clarification to the line of questioning from Chairman Burns on Senate Research has a point, and I'll let Catherine speak to that. You have to tell me what number you are.
It may be worth considering. There was a significant amount of conversation when there was legislation passed a couple of years ago as to the misdemeanor. It was recognized that in the state of Georgia, that there are no misdemeanors for trafficking, that it's only felonies, but the anticipation was that there may be trafficking in other states that was considered a misdemeanor. So the misdemeanor language isn't specific to crimes in Georgia. It is just about misdemeanors of those type offenses, which would be considered in the licensing process.
Thank you, Catherine. So,
Thank
if I remember right, when we passed this legislation to regulate hemp production in Georgia, it was in reaction to the change in the federal law to allow it. And basically it was, if we did not want to regulate it at the state level, we could have actually just done nothing in the legislature, and the federal government would have prevailed on how it was regulated. So I think what the senator is trying to do is sort of in keeping with that thought process, in my opinion, that we are kind of trying to mirror federal legislation. That's sort of how I see it, but that's my opinion anyway. I've got a question from Senator Summers.
Mr. Chairman, I just was going to say that at the appropriate time, you know, I everybody get a second chance, and I make a motion to pass this out.
Okay.
There is somebody signed up to speak.
So we've got special guests, 2 special guests with us here today. Thank you, Senator Jackson.
Thank you.
The Scribbles and Scribbles' friend Aviva are here. So you come forward, please.
I'm so nervous. I have tummy bubbles. It's okay, Scribbles. I wish it didn't get postponed. Then we would have had an excuse not to come.
Scribbles. The universe rearranges itself to accommodate our perception of reality. Change is good.
And talk is cheap. Let's just have a pull-up contest.
Scribbles, we have to focus.
Oh my God. Hi, everybody. How are you today?
Chairman Walker, Senator Jackson, all of you in the Ag Committee, everyone watching at home, thank you so much. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for allowing us to share our thoughts today. We do support giving everyone a chance, everyone and anyone a chance to grow hemp, no matter what.
We believe everyone has the God-given right to grow this beautiful plant, get their hands in the soil, experience the nature therapy, and this seed should not be kept from anyone. If someone has the urge or want to grow and commune with the divine in this sacred way, it's a true blessing for all of us.
That's right, Scribbles.
Plus, we need as many hemp farmers to grow as possible to fund the hemp farming program so we can lower that ridiculously high processing fee.
He's got a point there. Look, I know you are negotiating with the GBI and there's federal standards, but I'm going to put in 2 more of my cents to allow all felons to grow without having to wait 10 years. Their time has been served, their slave labor has been used, our tax money paid for all of that, and it's a punishment to all of us to exclude them or anyone from farming this crucial plant, a plant that some say has been evolving for over 35 million years.
Which is being messed up by the 0.3% limit.
That's right, Scribbles. Besides, I think federally they might be fixing that, though, to 1%.
Yeah.
But speaking of numbers, I am curious what the 10 years is about. I heard you say that just to make sure they don't get another felon, but I think it's definitely an interesting amount of time. Yeah, don't you think?
Yeah, I think maybe 10 months or something. In 10 years, we might all be flooded out.
That's true. Maybe we should go build an ark instead of testifying. Look, I know some of you might be prosecuting attorneys, but here I just ask you to just think about the people and let's even the playing field. Let's not only allow murderers and rapists and thieves and cocaine dealers to grow hemp, let's require it. And let's keep a close eye on them. Let's require them to grow it around the airport to fight or remediate the jet fuel and stop it from leaching into the mouth of the Flint River. But whatever you do, do not let them grow potatoes, because they might make vodka. But seriously, Albert Einstein said, the problems that exist in this world today cannot be solved by the level of thinking that created them. So the level of thinking I am referring to is the punishment, the shaming, the fear, the slave labor, the lying to support systems of monetary greed. We created huge problems for our people and our world when we began controlling and punishing people for growing hemp by burning fields of hemp, destroying families, and causing homelessness. It's time to have some major forward thinking and be creating unconditional love for the people.
It's all about love, love, love.
Because conditional love is based in selfishness, greed, power, fear, control, and I think as a people we've finally grown out of that, don't you think?
L-O-L-O-V-E.
L-O, elevate me. It's all about connecting and giving.
Just stop the hate and feel the love.
We all deserve love, and everyone has an endocannabinoid system. even felons. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Aviva. Thank you, Scribbles. All right, do we have anybody else signed up? Nobody else. That'd be hard to follow anyway. So we have a motion from Senator Summers, do pass. Is there a second? We've got a second. Senator Rahman. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, like sign. All right, the bill passes 4-3. Good luck in rules. Thank you. Okay. The next bill that we have, Senate Bill 512, Chairman Payne. Do I need to read out the LC number for the? Do y'all need that in the record or? So the bill we just passed was Senate Bill 481, LC 510017. That is the right one, isn't it, Senator Jackson? All right. All right. Everybody good there? All right. Senator Payne, come forward and tell us about your bill, and if what's the posture today that you'd like on this? Are you wanting to have a hearing only?
I thought we were going to just have a hearing today. I think that would be the best place for this right now, just to kind of start the discussion of what we're trying to do, so everybody's kind of aware of what we're trying to do. And I have Teresa Robinson here. She's going to help me and bring forth some information as well. This is Senate Bill 5.
Just a second. All right, Teresa Robertson, who are you with?
I'm with the Humane Society
Okay.
today.
All right, thank you.
All right. Senate Bill 512. This Georgia's law against dog fighting was passed in 2008 and has not been updated since that time. The bill simply seeks to update the statute to include all animals, not just dogs. This bill also makes it illegal to take a minor child into an animal fight. Why do we need it? Georgia is the only state in the country that only bans dog fighting without including at least some other animals, such as cockfighting. Animal fighting is already illegal under federal law. The Federal Animal Fighting Venture Prohibition, 7 U.S.C. 2156, prohibits sponsoring, exhibiting, possessing, training, or transporting animals for fighting, possession of state or sale of animal fighting paraphernalia, causing minors under 16 to attend a fight, and using a postal service or other interstate instrument for promoting or an animal fighting venture. It applies to all U.S. states and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico and all U.S. territories. However, federal law only applies when the violation affects interstate or foreign commerce and uses an instrument of commerce. That includes such activities as crossing state lines to attend an animal fight, shipping animals or supplies for an event across state lines, or using the internet or U.S. Postal Service to communicate, advertise, organize, or otherwise facilitate a fight. State laws are necessary because federal law resources for investigation and prosecution of animal fighting crimes are typically limited to large-scale and multi-state operations, and often with overlapping investigations such as organized crime. Animal fights are never just about the act of watching an animal fight to the death. They are always associated with other unsavory and illegal activities such as illegal gambling, drug trafficking, and other illicit crimes. In several states, animal fighting rings have been linked to cartels and have been sources of human trafficking activity as well. In a recent poll, 89% of Georgia voters support strengthening Georgia's dog fighting law to ban all forms of animal fighting. And and people ask me, why am I bringing this bill? It's just because I'm one of those that believes that the law should be explicit. You know, I give reverence to the law, and I think that's one of those things I've always understood that, you know, and it has to be. It makes no sense to me why we just have dog fighting, but we're not looking at the other animals too, because to me that's, you know, and I know from my background working with youth for 30 years, and just, you know, these type of things lead to not only, as I laid out, just the, you know, human trafficking aspect and also drugs, but also violence begets violence. And in a society that we hope to not have our kids raised in understanding that they live in a world just riddled with violence, you know, we've got to end it where we can. And so I'll turn it over to Teresa. I think she has a few things she wanted to add to that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you so much for letting me speak. So I am the granddaughter of a cattle rancher, and I'm proud offspring of the Texas ag industry. So this is not an attempt to do anything to the ag industry or to the poultry industry. I was raised by hardworking men and women who were very fun, and but they were ethical, and they were men and women of character. And so I personally currently own chickens and raise them. My daughter Andy is very much obsessed with our Bok Boks. So this bill is not, again, it is not an attack on the poultry industry by any stretch of the imagination. I married into a family that's also a family of character, and may or may not have enjoyed cockfighting at one point in our family history, and I may or may not have remnants of that family history in my living room. But today we find that cockfighting is more and very different than that our parents and grandparents experienced. And it's more than sports gambling, which as of today is still illegal in the state of Georgia. As the wife of a cop, I am well acquainted with officer discretion, and I trust our local law enforcement to know the needs of and threats to their communities. If there's cockfighting activity, the men and women who wear the badge in your own communities know if it's just some good old boys goofing off, and they also know when the cockfighting is actually the hub of a seedy and criminal underbelly. Why remain the only state in the nation to tie the hands of local law enforcement in dealing with these issues if they need to? We're proud to be number one in a lot of things. We're the World Series champs, we're the college football champs, and we are the number one state in which to do business. We are champions on so many fronts. We are a state that is leading the way nationally to expel a culture of irreparable harm and violence against women and children, thanks to this very body taking legislative measures alongside First Lady Marty Kemp's efforts through the Grace Commission. Let's not leave an unintentional gap in the law to make us the number one state for cockfighting as well. I would urge you to carefully consider what you think you know about cockfighting as a part of rural America's history, and consider what we know can be a part of a dark underground network and industry that perpetuates harm and exploitation of Georgia's most vulnerable citizens.
Thank you. Any questions for the author? Senator Jackson.
Thank you both for bringing this. I note from your testimony that you speak specifically about cockfighting, but the bill that's proposed to us is for all animal fighting. So can you all talk about why you didn't just choose to specify dog and cocks, or dogs and roosters? I think that's probably the more appropriate term, and instead went for the whole broad animal.
Well, in the initial stage, we have that language, but we're looking at changing. We have some things we'd like to change with the language of that bill, and that's why we wanted desired to have a hearing today to make those changes, specific changes, because our number one concern is cockfighting, but at the same time, we feel like this, if you open the venture to any, you could have dogs on pig, or fighting, and just and so we're just trying to make sure that we take out all of that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you for bringing the bill, because I support it. I would suggest to you that there are areas of the world that engage in bullfighting. And as the senator points out, we may think that this is an area of cockfighting or rooster fighting, or however you choose to label it, but it's not restricted to that, and I think that's the appropriate approach. I think the appropriate approach should be, we should not be fighting any animals against each other, pitting them against each other, and then perhaps having additional activities that go along with that. So, thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Any other questions or from the committee? We do have some people signed up to speak. All of them are in favor, I believe, of the legislation. But anything else?
I would like to add, I'm holding in my hand a story from April 8th of 2021.
Order. Chairman Burns.
You would think a former school teacher. But I'm holding in my hand a story from April 8th of 2021, and this is where 2 raids in the week had led to for meth operations. And along with these 2 operations, they also uncovered another disturbing crime. Investigators found a meth in the barn of birds tied to cockfighting. And so these things are related. It is the same people, doing these same illicit crimes. And so I'm just to take another wheel out from underneath their cart, for lawless behavior.
So I'm struck by your comment, about violence.
Begets violence.
Begets violence. And I do think there's a psychological, if a young person, for example, is, cruel to animals or fighting animals or whatever, then that's an indication that there's some maybe, future violence in that person's future or psychological issues there. I mean, it's...
well, for that reason, Mr. Chairman, as juvenile probation officer for all those years, what made me fall in love with my job, so to speak, was even when I had a 220-pound 16-year-old standing in front of me, I never would have let them make me angry. And I've literally had kids spit in my face and just wiped it off because I knew if I became angry, I gave him control and I no longer had the upper hand. And so I would just learn to wipe it off because that anger is what so many of these kids, that's the world they've lived in. And so I couldn't just be like the world that they had known. And so I had to be something different. And to be able to reach those kids, I just wiped it off and said, son, now let's talk about your reaction. Was that the appropriate, are you in a better place because of what you just did, or are you in a lesser position? And just use as a learning moment with those kids. And to me, it's just the violence, because they saw me at 6'4" and 220 pounds, they just perceived I was a physical threat. And as soon as they would lash out at me, they were already in fight or flight mode. But, to me, it's just getting rid of that violence for the younger generations and making sure that we're, there's no reason for it. I mean, the world that we live in, and our kids and our grandkids, are going to be after us. It's going to be because of the values that we carried and we showed them before we gave the world to them.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple other questions. Senator Hatchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this bill. I support the intent 100%. The only issue that I have in reading this is I think it is somewhat of a slippery slope on page 2 if someone is convicted of a second offense, that the part of the sentence, they may prohibit them from having any animals on their premises. And the way animals is defined in here, it includes wild animals as well. And I'm just thinking out loud here.
That's another reason why we won't have the hearing, because we do realize, if someone who's a farmer and but they've been involved, well, you've just taken away their livelihood forever because of of the one incident that they got caught doing cockfighting. So that's why I wanted to have this hearing, so we could talk about the language of the bill, that we could craft this down to get a bill that everybody could be. I'm not saying we have all the answers, so that's why we're kind of leaning on you to help us find those answers.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I would just take a look at that, because in my head I'm thinking, what if a deer comes on your property, or you have squirrels in your trees? I mean, technically, that might constitute a violation of your sentencing. So I would just encourage you to look at that part.
Well, like I said, that's why I asked for just a hearing on it today, because I didn't want this committee to feel that we were trying to move something, and we're not just trying to pass a bill to make ourselves famous. We just feel it's the right thing to do, and we need to have this conversation and make sure we get the language right, that we can make Georgia a better place to live, work, and raise your family.
That's right.
Good
Thank you, Mr.
point,
Chairman.
Senator. Senator Summers.
Chairman Payne,
Yes, sir.
is this a big problem in Whitfield County?
It's a big problem in a place that
making sure.
you would be surprised where this is a problem that you just
I
don't
mean,
know about.
when you
It's
wrote
all-
this
it's
bill
in
or
every
whatever,
corner
did
of the
it come
state.
from some previous knowledge or some?
It's in every corner of the state, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we have some, thank you, Chairman, thank you, Teresa. We have some folks that want to speak in favor of the bill. First is Mike Griffin with the Georgia Baptist Convention. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just take just a second, just saying that Georgia Baptist, we do support the senator in this legislation, and we support the reasons and also the ramifications that are talked about here. We do believe it's time to update the law. We do believe that all animals should be included and that minors should be restricted. So we do agree with this legislation. Appreciate your favorable support.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your brevity, too. Next, Taylor Hawkins with Frontline Policy.
Try to follow Mike's excellent example. Taylor Hawkins, Director of Advocacy for Frontline, and as you know, we all work for Georgia, where making Georgia the #1 state to raise a family as well. We believe this legislation moves us in the right direction towards that and updates our law, and we agree with everything the chairman said here. So we'd appreciate your favorable consideration of the bill.
Thank you, Taylor. And next, Paul Smith with Citizen Impact.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Citizen Impact is a network of pastors and churches across Georgia. This, I think, is the first time I've ever been in the Ag Committee to speak on something. It may seem a little bit out of our purview, but we were asked to show support for this legislation. And, you know, we're concerned about moral issues. We're concerned about Georgia's children, and we're concerned about gambling. And of course, that's the whole purpose with this animal fighting is gambling. And so we just want to show support for the intent of the bill, support Chairman Payne and what he's trying to do here.
Paul, thank you very much. And I appreciate your members and the prayers that they pray for us. And I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
we had about 100 pastors here on Tuesday, and that was a lot of the focus is praying for you guys.
We certainly need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Again, this was just a hearing only, and as the author said, he wants to hear from the members of the committee on any concerns you have with the legislation. We want to get it improved if it needs improving, perfected, and hopefully we can get to the point where we can get it passed out. But so y'all get with the author and share with him your concerns or ideas on this legislation. Does anybody on the committee have anything else they want to bring before us for the good of the order today? All right, I appreciate all your attendance and safe travels back home. We're adjourned.